And all of a sudden, I was just, I mean, there was no leaving my body and floating around the room and all that stuff. I was just flying through these stars. And all I felt was acceptance and belonging and love from every direction. And it was awesome. And right in front of me were these three little bouncing hooded guys. And they're about 4 foot tall. And they were overjoyed to see me. He said, "You're going back." And then the place just started to break up. It started to come apart, like you're in the Star Trek in the transporter. That love is all there is. I know that's very cliche, but it's absolutely true.
Welcome to the Lucid Project. We're brothers Drew and James, bringing you conversations at the edge of reality. Today we're talking with Bill Letson, whose near-death experience might just change how you see life and death. All right, we got Bill Letson here. Bill, you've become one of the most recognized voices in the near-death experience and overall spiritual community. Your story has reached millions across YouTube and beyond, and it's inspired a lot of people to rethink what's possible. We're both, James and I, very honored to have you here, and I think we'd love to just dive right in. Can you go ahead, Bill, and take us back to where it all began?
Okay, sure. And thanks for that nice interview, guys. Pleasure to be here. You guys got a following that's building, and I'm sure you're going to be very successful. And so, yeah, I'm a NDE guy, like hundreds of others, and I was, I'm retired now. I'm in my 70s, but I was a fireman most of my life here on the Central Coast of California, and in '94, there was a flu epidemic, and it was a CDC bona fide flu epidemic. It's called the Beijing flu, and anyway, but it came in waves, and a bunch of us, a bunch of people were sick, and we were running calls, and I got exposed to a woman, and we just kind of dove into her apartment, and she was super sick, and that's kind of what public safety does. They do it every day. They put themselves out there. But she exhaled into my face, and I took it all in. And within a few days, I was as sick as she was. And it came on incredibly fast. Very surprising. I was super dehydrated, and my vital signs were tanking. And I kind of figured that out, put out a call for help, and ended up in an ambulance in the hospital, and the place was full of people in the emergency room, and they had their hands full, and so they were trying to do the best they could, and so they were trying to give everybody something to suit their needs. And so she came. My wife was there, and some fire guys were there in the room, because it was kind of close. It's kind of a close call there in the living room floor. It was circling the drain pretty quick. But I got a couple of bags in me, and I was feeling pretty good. And then this lady came in with this drug mix, and I didn't really want it at the time, but she insisted, and I was a good soldier. And so she pushed it into the IV port, and I went back. I fell back on the gurney on the bed, straight back. And my wife just said, "You were completely gone." And there was a medic there, a off-duty fire guy, and he was raised the alarm like, this is ridiculous, And so everybody got panicky, and I was out cold. I didn't hear or see any of this, but they could not get me back, and the highest blood pressure my wife wrote down was 40/0. And So they tried for a while. They Narcaned me a bunch of times to reverse the drugs and then shipped me off to intensive care where, from what I could tell, I was going to be, see what happens to him because there was nothing more they could do. So they had a couple of IVs going, large bore, and so they were filling me back up with fluids. And sometime during that night, this all happened like 3:30 in the afternoon, and then sometime, as best as I can imagine, it was somewhere in that night. I mean, I was hovering at, uh, you know, crashing vital signs for a long time. And all of a sudden, I was just, there was no leaving my body and floating around the room and all that stuff. I was just flying through these stars. And that's all I could call them. We didn't have a concept of orbs or energetic beings, these things that we are, is at our essence. But what I saw was stars, colorful stars. And they had all kinds of color from them and flow and music and it was awesome. And I was just flying through them, and it was like a welcoming home. Um, and all I felt was acceptance and belonging and love from every direction. And it was awesome. It was euphoria. It was this ecstasy. And I've always said this, and I think it's going to come out in the future that this is a very profound part of our existence here. But I've always said this, that it was like a cosmic orgasm. And it wasn't a moment. It was continuous. You just sat at that level of happiness, and you stayed there. And with that, I was just thinking, how in the world did I forget who I really was? How did I forget this? And how did I believe I was this dude, this guy, Bill, this single, separate guy with this chatter in his head with all his downside energies? And none of those energies existed anymore. It was all an illusion. It was all a trick or a game or something that we play. Where, I mean, we all have them. We have the thoughts of fear of the future and regret and things like jealousy, and none of that stuff, none of that low vibrational stuff existed. You could not go there. And collectively, all those emotions, we call them fear. And there was no fear where we go, when we go. Fear stays here. It's part of the ride. It's the main part of the ride. So I was flying along, and I was like, man, that was gnarly. That place was harsh, and I couldn't believe that I'd forgotten who I was, that I'd forgotten home, and I was like, I could do this forever. And you guys have heard this thing about time, that it's an illusion, and it's sort of a artifact of this place that we come for these adventures. And linear time really doesn't exist. There is no concept of what's coming or what happened. There is only the moment. There's only the moment, and in every moment, this is what I experienced. In every moment was this overpowering ecstasy. And so the thought pattern was, oh man, this is so cool. Oh wow, this is so cool. And look over somewhere else, and there's this star pulsing, and it's like, oh wow, that is so cool. And like a child, everything was right now in the moment. So anyway, that's a lot of people have problems with this whole time thing, and yeah, it's kind of this really well done illusion that it even exists. so I'm flying along, just every moment is, wow, this is so cool. And then all of a sudden, everything shifted, and I was in a solid place. I was in a room. It was brightly lit, and I've always said that it had indirect lighting, and I could never. I've said this before, but in the last couple of years, I keep questioning why are this word selection? Where did it all come from? Because it was just completely, you know, organic in talking about it. But the indirect lighting thing, I've heard other NDEers say things like this, and because you couldn't find any light source, there was no lights on the ceiling or anything like that. And there were no on-off switches or anything like that. Everything was light. You were in the light. You were the light. This thing, a light body. We return to this environment of light where it's a limitless place. So anyway, I was in this facility-like thing, and there was beds there and equipment, and it looked like a clinic. And right in front of me were these three little bouncing hooded guys, and they're about 4 foot tall, and they were overjoyed to see me. They were smiling from ear to ear, and they were bouncing up and down, and they were just on me. They were asking me questions rapid fire, and like things like, how was it? What did you learn? And I was just looking at them, and they were giggling about that. And then one of them came close to, I guess, confirm what I think they all thought. And he turned to the other two. He looked me over, and he goes, he doesn't remember us. And they just thought that was hilarious. And I wasn't fearful or anything. I was just confused. And I was like, well, hang on, little dudes. It's kind of very strange where I am right now, what's going on. And they laughed even harder, and they were really cool. And I knew I could sort it out at some point, and but it wasn't coming. And then in behind them in the background was this tall, wispy guy who kind of, started coming forward. And he was, I've described him. You guys said you heard all my things, but I've described him 1,000 different ways. And he was like a sliver of a being, and he had this spin to him, and then it was this like projection of what he was. And he came towards me, and he had this sort of spin to him, and he had this look like he was underwater. And as he moved, parts of him would separate and then catch up. And he was smiling the whole way and chuckling. And I saw this movie, What Dreams May Come. I just watched it the first time, and there was this scene in the beginning when Robin Williams first crosses over, and then he runs into Cuba Gooding. And Cuba Gooding is like appearing and spinning around and disappearing from in his apartment and or his home. And that is exactly what I saw when you see him come forward and he says something and his face kind of distorts and then he spins off. If anybody ever wants to see what I saw, that is absolutely it. And this kind of lighthearted feeling, he was, friendly and all that. And that movie, What Dreams May Come, if you're looking for visuals, that movie is so accurate. That is so completely accurate. Some other NDers are saying, whoever made that, created that, the scenes, had some inside information. Um, so he came forward and he was chuckling the whole time. And when he got close to me, that spinning energy sort of enveloped me, and I really reacted to it. Um, it was overwhelming love, and I felt like I was gonna just break down and start crying from overpowered by love, like a mother has for their infant, where you just can't contain it. And so he was chuckling, and he was watching me. You could just tell he just loved me. He just adored me, and um, those little guys were bouncing back and forth and screwing around, playing tricks on each other and stuff, and giggling. And I was watching all this, and I was thinking, okay, well, I'm brought here for a reason, because where I just was where I want to be, and because that was a limitless situation. And so I was thinking, um, this isn't very organized, and maybe I should make some suggestions. So I said, my thought, and said, "Do you guys want to do that life review thing, or go through a couple things in my past, or flash my life before my eyes? This is part of it." And because there was no question that I was no longer Bill. Um, I had no intention of ever going back to Bill. And I felt like it had been a trick, and I had been crammed into this, this container, this body, and saddled with this personality, this, birth chart, the energies that are scripted on us when we're born, this whole astrology thing, that's absolutely real. It's like a hand of cards, who we are inside. And all that was gone. And I was just this super joyful, stripped down version of my core, which was completely happy with everything. And so going back to that was out of the question. And so I asked them, "You guys want to get started with that next step?" And the tall wispy guy, he just cracked up, and he thought that was hysterical. And he said, sure, let's do that. How do you want to start? And I said, all right, well, I'm making some progress. A little strange, but so I just told stories. I didn't have, it wasn't like some of your guests will tell you, these really profound look back at their life and how they impacted others, good and bad. And it wasn't like that at all. It was just me yammering, hoping to check a box and then to vamonos. And after a while, I told a bunch of stories, but after a while he said, okay, that's enough. Time to go back. And I was not prepared for that at all. And I'm like, go back? I had forgotten about Bill. At that point, I wasn't interested in any of his life or this place at all. And so I put up resistance. I had some excuses, and no one will miss me, and all these things. I was in my late 30s, and I said I'll be 40 soon, and then it's pretty much over, and was no point in going back. And he laughed at all of that, and then he goes, "Okay, that's enough. Time to go back." And he came forward, and he said, "You're going back." And then the place just started to break up. It started to come apart, like you're in the Star Trek in the transporter. It just sort of, the room came apart, and then he was in front of me, and then he evaporated, and he was the last to disappear. And I just dropped away. It was a sinking feeling, like the floor had just dropped out, and I dropped away into darkness and left that euphoric realm and everything it had to offer. Just left that behind, and then I was back near my body, and it was really not a cool place. It felt lonely, and it felt dismal, and it was fearful. And I don't know if that was the energies of my life or my psyche being loaded back on, as I got near my body, attaching to those energies. But yeah, it's a place we don't want to be, and it's right next to the physical. And I do believe what we do in the physical counts. It echoes out into the non-physical, and we create a vibration. And if we match that low vibration, then you stay there, and you become this. We call them ghosts, or we call them all kinds of things. But yeah, we want to raise our core energy and ascend, earn our wings, a higher vibration, and we want to vibrate back to that dimension of pure love. And everyone who is watching this, people are always looking for some sort of experience, something to say, I want what that guy has. I want to know something. And everyone watching this has woke up in bed feeling like you just dropped in an elevator, or you just dropped back into something, and you wake up startled, and your arms and legs may even jump. And that is returning to the physical after a night of, soul travel, dreaming. And then you're coming back into the physical, and you're picking up on it. And so that's something for everyone. That should be comforting. And so I woke up in my body, and I kept waking up and looking at the automatic equipment that was taking my vitals. And I couldn't stay awake, but I noticed it climbing and climbing and climbing. And then I could stay awake, and it was early in the morning. I don't know what, 4 or 5 in the morning. And it was dark, and the nurse was making her rounds. And she saw me sitting up, and she was just startled. She's like, "Whoa, you're awake." And I was like, "Yes, I am. I need to talk to you." And she goes, "We didn't know what was going on with you. We didn't know why we couldn't get you back. Everyone's been, worried you weren't coming back, and I got to go get the doctor." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's cool. You can go get the doctor. But first," and this was coming from somewhere deep inside me, I said, "What am I doing back here?" I was pissed, and I was talking from my soul, because I had no business, laying that on her. And I told her I was home. I was home with the coolest guys, and now I'm back here, and Bill had bought the farm, and I knew it. And she said, "Well, honey, you've been in escrow all night, and you fell out of escrow, and now you're back with us." And she was really cool, because she was kind of looking me deep in my eyes, and she says, "You're gonna have to get your head around that." Meaning, to me, I took it all these years was, okay, this is your path, and it's your choice. You either honor it or you can resist it, but it's still your path. And she grounded me, and that was the coolest thing, because you guys will see, if you haven't already, that a lot of NDEers, they walk around for years saying, "What did I do so bad that I'm stuck here?" And that leads to isolation and addiction and they can lose 10 or 20 years just in that questioning, in that very deep questioning of, why am I here? Why do I have to be here? Um, but she kind of, I don't know, I just kind of sorted it out right there. And I was like, okay, that was cool. I'm back as Bill, and, Bill should probably spread the word because this is a really good information. And so I told everybody, and starting with the nurses and the doctor, and they all made fun of me. And then when my family got there, I was just like yammering away. I was just like, man, you guys, you're not going to believe it. It's unbelievable. We have no idea what we really are. Um, and I could tell it was, upsetting my mom. I think she thought I had brain damage. And so I lightened up on them, and um, I took a few days at home, um, on the couch. And then when I got back to work, all the guys, because there were firemen in the room the next day when I came back. And so I was letting them have it too. And so they went back and said, hey, he's got this story, man. You're not going to believe his story. And so everyone in the department was talking about it. Um, and I didn't disappoint. As soon as I got back in the stations, um, people would say, hey, what happened? People are talking about it. And I said, sit down, I'll tell you what happened. And I didn't think about anything like, how is this going to impact my career? Or that did not register at all, because it was an absolutely true experience, more real than here. And I just thought it was really good information, especially for the fire guys, because, they see a lot. You see stuff that you can't forget. And, it's good information to understand that nobody ever really dies. There's no real harm ever done to anyone. It's all kind of a temporary play, or like a movie. The movie ends and everybody walks out of the theater fit as a fiddle. But, here we are the movie characters, so we don't know that. But the eternal us, which is us, there is a seamless, flawless change when you cross over. You're still you. The voice in your head doesn't miss a beat. The backstory changes, and the ability to hit low energy disappears. It's all good after that. So yeah, it didn't register with me that this could be an issue, but one of the guys came down from the office a couple of weeks later and said, hey man, the overhead guys are talking about you in the chief's office. They think you need a psych exam. And I said, oh, okay, I get it. And he said, better zip it with that story. And so I did. And because I wanted to be a fireman, that was important to me. I loved that job. And I did it for another 15 years. And then in 2010, I retired. And then things changed. So that's my story.
Incredible, Bill. I mean, I've heard it so many times, but that was a unique telling of its own, and it gives me the
Yeah.
chills each time I hear it again. And thank you for that super thorough description. I did want to start out, James, if you're okay, sort of. I want to focus on the return, Bill, because there's so much to unpack there. Um, I mean, you mentioned that sort of fear, anger, grief, that inquisition that sends people into this deep depression when they return. How could I possibly be sent back here? I want to sort of talk through that. Is it more than the emotions there? Did the experience unlock anything, physical, or did you feel any lingering psychic abilities? I guess overall, when you returned, did it bring back any sensory memory, sound, texture, fragrance that you struggled to express or that lingered with you upon your return?
Yeah, well, that's a cool question. I've never heard that one, but yeah, something was there. It showed up almost immediately. This sort of like almost like I was gaining some autistic qualities, and it had to do with numbers and counting, and um, that all of a sudden just fascinated me. Numbers, 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 and groups of numbers, and when I'd run, I'd count. When I'd swim and bike, I was always counting. And I used to say, "What is this counting thing?" And then that led to music. And I could hear music. I could hear that it was balanced mathematics. Um, I could absolutely tell what was coming next. I don't know how, but because there's a formula for it in order to be soothing and popular. There's absolutely a formula. Timing and the key shift and all this. And so I got some drums. And I was in my 40s by then, and I started playing the drums, and my wife was like, "You lost your mind." And I was like, "This is really important to me." And I played them for a couple months, and all of a sudden I could play pretty much any country western song and rock songs. You got to you have to know the song because they it's not just this steady beat the whole way. There's changes and stuff. But I could play most rock songs, and my wife was like, if I hadn't seen this with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. You haven't had a lesson. You just sat down, put some headphones on, and followed what you were listening to. And she goes, you're like perfect. And I'm like, thank you, my love. I think that's the only compliment I ever, that's the first time I ever surprised her, I think. And, but yeah, I went on to become, playing a bunch of bands and got approached by these guys that were really pros. He used to tour with the Beach Boys, and they're like, we're going to put together a band that's going to be a top band in the area. And they did it. And, somehow I was in there, and we played the Mid-State Fair. We played at the stages, I don't know, the Frontier stage or whatever. And my wife would come backstage and she'd say, how the hell did you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. It was just there. And, that's a common thing. You hear that guys come back and they play the piano like Tony Saccone, or all of a sudden he's a concert pianist, and he's he's composing, never played the piano in his life. And it just all made sense to him. And there was another music thing that was, anyway, music is the language, beyond this place. Music and
Yeah.
sound and color, it's all one flow.
Yeah. You said
And
you were
it's,
hearing music on the other side too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all flow. We have them separated here. Art and color and music and another dozen things that we don't have a name for. But it's carries emotion, and emotion is everything. It's the universe is running on emotion. That's what really counts. And what's being rated here, what's being graded, is our intentions, our motivations. What are our emotions? What are we creating with our thoughts? Because at home, thoughts are things, and they manifest at the speed of thought. And, we're just a bunch of young souls, and we're supposed to get our head around that. We're supposed to realize we get control of our thinking, and not go off in a tantrum. Because as Robert Grant put it, he said, a young soul with the anger issue is like giving a 5-year-old an atom bomb and having him go walk around town. It's that devastating on the other side. So there was a lot of info there. Sorry, I went too far.
No, that was fascinating. Yeah, I haven't heard that music thing before, but something interesting I've heard, and maybe it resonates with you, is a lot of like the most famous, like talented musicians and stuff are, have been theorized to be like almost channeling something from the other side. It's like just something as, divine as like flowing through them when they're performing, and it's um, you know, a little bit from the beyond, which is really interesting. But
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
that's absolutely true. And I've noticed that usually the more talented guys in bands, bands historically notoriously are known for having breakups and people getting permanently pissed at each other, and that music composition is coming from such a deep part of them that when they don't get their way in the set list or something like that, there's no way back.
Huh.
I think that's why bands have some problems, because music is at the core of what we really are.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I had a quick question on, when you start talking about this experience again, is there like, uh, these residual feelings of like the other side that you start to like experience again, like a bit of that vibration or, whatever that sensation is? Do you start to feel that a little bit again, like physically as you're, recounting your story?
Yeah, there's with me, there's this thing, Kundalini. You guys have probably come across that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that is when you reach some sort of core value in your vibration, this Kundalini energy wakes up. And if you support it, it moves up the spine, and it's over years, but it ends up going out through the crown chakra, and you have this reunited thing where you're kind of having a heaven on earth existence, where you're just kind of stoked all the time. And so when you ask me, does that come back, that feeling on the near-death experience, all I need to do these days is sit still and kind of zone out. People call it meditating, but it only takes a minute or two, and the whole room changes. I start to see the colors moving. It's moving in swirls, and if you let go into it, 7 or 8 minutes in, there's the grids, and the grids there's just some sort of projection that we're all in. This hologram thing, like we're all wearing our own headset, and you kind of go past the grids, and then there are these light beings all around. They come forward. Sometimes uh, the light clears up and a person comes out of the light. And just the other day, I was talking to my wife, and I said, "Your mom, this light being came close to me, and then your mom stepped out, clear as day, and she was 20 years old, and she's long gone." And so in this experience, as soon as the colors come up, um, the bliss comes up, and it is um, it's really overwhelming. It's really powerful bliss. And I kind of forget your question. You said something about the emotions. Oh, the emotions come back. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, you answered it.
The sensation of that blissful other side, and orgasmic. Okay, let's use that word.
Yeah,
That is what overwhelms you, and it's like you're in a seizure, or in the human body, it's like you're in a seizure or some sort of powerful energetic trance, while the whole vision thing goes on, and then these energies are moving around us. They're around all of us, but we're just not tuned into it. um,
right, right.
and the Kundalini awakening, the Kundalini rising, that's the tune in.
That's really interesting. Yeah, yeah, Bill, that answers, I think, James's question there too. Yeah. So one thing too, Bill, I wanted to hit on here is again, speaking to these sort of lingering effects. So you mentioned time is this illusion, and we've heard this from multitude of NDE experiences. I mean, it's something that I think anyone in the spiritual space is considering. Did time feel compressed or nonlinear while in that realm? I think you already hit on that, but I'm curious how that's affected you upon your return. You know, how has your sense of past, future, and present shifted in your current, but now that you've returned to this current realm? And what was that like, if you could go in a little more detail when you were there?
Well, the NDE, you know, I got right back into Bill, and you know, Bill had all his situations. So I mean, I knew this funny thing happened to me, and I knew there wasn't anything to worry about with this death thing. But I was still Bill, and I didn't have a whole lot of insight into the, you know, the deep spiritual concepts that I have been exposed to since then. And so when I retired in 2010, I was doing Bill stuff, and I was riding bikes and swimming and running trails, and um, you know, getting into all kinds of human things. And then along came this video by Rick Strassman called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. And I watched the video, and for some reason, some weeks later, I read the book, which, I mean, I would never have looked at either of those things. But, and then when I got to chapter 13 and 14 called Contact Through the Veil, and he did this experiment with DMT at a university in New Mexico, and he gave his volunteers high dose DMT, and he was mimicking what happens to us when we die. The pineal gland releases this DMT, splashes the brain, and his volunteers were going to this same thing that I was at, a very clinical place, and there would be these three short little guys, and mostly they were friendly and fun, and they were happy they were there, and they were around them. And then there was a taller person who seemed to be in charge, would come forward, and they'd only be there a few minutes, and then it would, you know, would start to wear off, and they could feel themselves being pulled back. And like half of them described this, and it's in these chapters in this book. And when I mean, it's like I was compelled to read it, not my idea. But when I got to those chapters, my life completely changed, because I had to walk around for a week going, what is going on in this place? I had this thing happen, but I've heard every, you know, kind of human explanation of what it was. None of it fit. But here, this guy with this DMT could reproduce this. And, you know, there's a portal, and we can go there. I don't recommend it. You know, I've drank ayahuasca, and I haven't done the hardcore DMT, but it absolutely, you can leave your physical body. You can leave your physical personality behind and experience yourself away from that. And the more DMT that you take, the farther you go. And I know that you can move into the perspective of the soul and look back at the human form, and into the higher self and look back at the soul and the human form. This happens with ayahuasca, but it's kind of a force thing. I mean, you're kind of dragged into these other dimensions, and it's not like a NDE. An NDE, you're invited. An NDE is an invitation to wake up to who you really are. Um, Absolutely convinced of that, and everybody listening has, had synchronicities. They've had things they can't explain. There are no accidents. It's, we're being followed and led in these lives all the time. And we think, I've had 70 years on this planet, and you think that this whole thing is happening, all this time is passing, and it really isn't. Um, we've just taken on these physical world forms, which have a expiration date, but it's all happening at the same time. And I know it can't understand it, but yeah, there's no such thing as time. It's part of the illusion of this place. And I think that was the question you guys started with.
That's right. Yeah, thanks for answering that, Bill.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it has to be like so hard to articulate a lot of what you knew when you were crossed over, right? Like so much of, like time not being this, linear thing. It's got to be dang near impossible to articulate that stuff back in the human form, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is hard. And you can see it in, all my cohorts. They, like me, they're not polished presenters and stuff. They just speak from their heart, and they know that's what they're supposed to do. Um, some of my favorites are like John Davis and Louisa Peck and Mary Neal. There's a whole bunch of them, but Mary Neal is so funny. I saw her at a conference a few years ago, and I was sitting with the AV guys, yucking it up, and she came up to them and she goes, "Can you guys turn my voice off so I can't hear it? I'm so sick of hearing myself." Completely humble person, and they were funny, and they're like, "No, Mary, we can't turn your voice off. There's 2,000 people here want to hear you speak, and we're gonna have to amplify it." But we all got it good. When she walked away, she's like, "All right." But you can just see the humility there, and you can see it in a lot of indie ears. They're not looking to sell anything, and then they don't want attention. They're very happy with their lives, but also they were tasked with something if they chose to accept it. If they chose the invitation to connect with the divine. And John Davis, you can see it. He doesn't care. He's not selling anything. He doesn't want to be anybody. He already is somebody. He knows that. And he's just, and I feel the same way. I just don't want to let the other side down. And, this is, even though it's a fraction of 1% of the world population's even listening to kooks like me, but this is going to get big fast. It's been building, and for me it's been 30 years, but it's there's a wave, and it's cresting, and it'll be next year or not much longer. And some of the questions you guys ask me about this, trying to explain the other side, it's going to be explained to us from the other side. And lots of people are going to be getting the messages, and we're going to really change the way we think.
Yeah, that's an interesting segue. Yeah, I was going to ask you a little bit later on, but yeah, like, do you feel like humanity is kind of going through this spiritual transformation right now, like this sort of awakening process where we're sort of reconnecting with that divine in a sense?
Yeah, without question. And people like me, we're just sort of, I don't know, we're just sort of early kind of warm-up acts, before the big one hits, and it's hitting. I mean, something in the end of November is going to take place, and then there's going to be, and most people aren't going to. It's not going to be something, flashing across the sky. It's happening inside us. It's happening, at that level of emotions. Stuff that's not serving us anymore is going to come to the surface, and we can either deal with it or we can try to bury it. And if you deal with it, you're going to rise. Ascension, clear those energies. And if you try to bury it, then, you're just you're hooking into the human thing, and the human thing is changing. The type of human that will be on the earth is absolutely changing. There's more light coming into our bodies. We've gone from a carbon-based, this was last year, we were carbon-based cells, and we moved into this silica-based, and that's why I'm getting so many calls from people that say I'm vibrating, I feel electricity in my fingers, the frequency of the planet is going up, and we are part of the planet, and we can ride the wave, or we can stand there and let it break on us. But there's a whole bunch of things you can do to keep pace with the rising vibrations, and I think a lot of people are going to start figuring that out. It's being taught on Gaia, the whole thing with Joe Dispenza, with the breathing. All of that stuff is Kundalini yoga. It's all Kundalini yoga. It's all ancient knowledge, and it's to support the rising Kundalini, because I really go far with this with you guys. I appreciate you letting me rip, but everybody, the planet is going through a ascension. It's moving into a higher vibration, and everybody, we're all riding on the planet, and we're all going up too. And if you support the process, heaven on earth. And I don't know how many people are going to take that invitation, but it's out there. And these sites, these YouTube sites like Wise Quotes and Library of Thoth, and there's a whole bunch of them. What's coming through them is ancient knowledge. It's ancient intelligence. There's my AI, ancient intelligence, and ancient wisdom. Back to a time when we knew what we were. We knew that we were having this adventure on this planet, and we could learn things from it, and it's kind of a game. And then we go back. But we don't know that now. We'll do anything.
So
We'll do
on that
anything.
note,
Oh, I'm sorry.
But go ahead, please.
Well, we'll do anything to cling to that.
Yeah.
To that life, because we believe it's all we are, but it's not. This is just a part-time gig, a temporary gig.
Yeah. So do you think there's like, I've heard this through other religions as well, but that there's these cycles where, humanity is, in various points in the cycle, sort of living through that heaven on earth. And like this cycle is just this repetitive cycle where we have, sort of a descending consciousness where we sort of become more materialistic and disconnected from that divine, learn our harsher lessons, and then we're right back up again. Is that kind of your understanding of how things
That's
work?
absolutely what I believe, and it's really was as strange with my thing with, once I read that DMT book, I'm absolutely convinced that whatever's my path has been sort of scripted. I had free will. I could grab a 6-pack and drown myself in it, or I could get on a plane and go and hang out with shamans, in Central America, which is what I did for years, and get away for weeks or months at a time. And then they made sense of things that had happened to me. And then I watched this movie called The Pyramid Code by Carmen Bolter, Dr. Carmen Bolter. And that movie is all about this group that's follows this, what you just talked about, this precession of the equinox, that there's a 24,000 year cycle, and we have good times and hard times, and it's like a wheel of time, and it just goes round and round forever. And just like the Chinese, the I Ching, the I Ching means script. This is the script of the world, that we're going to be ascending and we're going to be descending, and this wonderful ancient cultures that we consider mythology, like Lemuria and Atlantis, they actually existed, but they had to go in order for us to descend and, like you said, experience the really darker, side of this place. And in that 24,000 year cycle, at the top is the golden age. And there's like 8,000 years, 9,000 years of this golden age. So that's pretty cool. And then there's a silver age, on both sides, ascending and descending. And that's about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years, and a bronze age. And then there at the bottom, which is 2,000 years long, is the Iron Age, a dark age. And that was called the Kali Yuga with the Hindus. And the Kali Yuga ended last March. That was like announced and then all these on-site, these YouTube channels came up with all this information, stuff that I was digging, out of a shaman. How does this work, and why am I seeing this? Because I was having visions, and they would answer, in one word answers, because most of the really good spiritual people, they don't talk much. They just put you in a place where you find it. But this information is coming out. Now it's available. Hundreds of videos. Wise Quotes I love those guys. They did one on me, and they were really sweet about it. And they know things. I don't know what that means, but they understand ancient knowledge, and it's there for anybody. It's free. It's on YouTube. And this whole thing with the 24,000 year cycle, the Kali Yuga ended last March. A year before that, I was at a conference for this procession, and the word in the chow line was, the veil is lifting. Time of secrets has passed. And, I'd been to 3 or 4 of those conferences, and I was like, what? What? Where? Everyone was saying, everybody who was in the know, Graham Hancock, okay, there's a name. And they were all giving this kind of wink, wink. And so, this is coming back, and it's not going to be on the 6 o'clock news ever. And people need to look inward and start connecting with what's real in nature, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, and this is a huge part of our channel, as you'll see, Bill, as we start to push out more content, lost knowledge from these ancient civilizations, these cycles and changes we're going through. But I did want to try to bring it back real quick to the NDE side, because I think, a lot of our audience may be new to this realm, and I wanted to kind of get at the heart of, this return, right? You mentioned um, you almost were trying to grasp to stay in that realm, right? The spiritual realm. You didn't want to return. It didn't make sense to you to return. But this being, right, had basically forced you back and said it's your time. I kind of want to get at, Bill, what your perception is of what is the purpose to your return? Um, and then a deeper question beyond that, how does that, how do we extrapolate that to what is the purpose of your life? I mean, were you shown sort of truths about earth and death from that experience? Do you feel like there was a warning or a set of knowledge you were sent back to give and to integrate into your return and how you're supposed to live now through the remainder of your life here on earth?
Um, uh, so everything here is free will, and the other side can't interfere. So what they need to do is pick up on people who have got some sort of frequency, have got an antenna switched on or something, or help switch it on, which is probably what happened in my case. Um, but and you see this it's in popular media. This is like my new thing for 2026 is like the messages are everywhere. And that is in the Star Trek. It was the prime directive that you can't mess with a civilization or a person even who's on a path, is on a journey. And that is the case. That is the other side can't interfere here, but they can put you in positions to make your free will choice. And so like myself and a lot of the people who are talking about their NDE, there's plenty that aren't talking about it. And it was a free will choice to help with this in these times. And that when I did this, I was going to the ions things for about 10 years. I started talking about my story, and my story's way bigger than the NDE, but there is a order to the education of the planet, and there's a script, and it has to come out in that order. And that's what's going on right now. The NDE is like higher knowledge 101. And, that's going to move into what we really are and the power of the pineal gland, and that these dimensions are all around us and they're going to be opening soon. And, but our ancient ancestors, they weren't a bunch of goofballs. They saw things like leprechauns and elves and things like that, like what I saw. They're all around us. They're just at another frequency, and our senses are choked down to these 6 senses, and we believe it's everything that there is, but it's not. It's nowhere close to what everything that there is, and that's going to start opening. Like I said, you listen to the guy Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar. A lot of people have trouble with that. It's some kind of, it looks like it's some kind of act or something. But everything he has ever said has made sense to me. Everything. He's never said anything that was way out there from my perspective. And, if you listen to him, he's talking about these things that are coming soon, months, year and a half. So I'm sorry. This topic is so big. I think
Yeah.
I lost
No, you hit
question.
on a interesting, I guess, just to follow up, Bill. So the purpose of your return, right? Why couldn't you just stay in that realm? And you were there, the peace was upon you. Why was it purposeful for you to return to Earth? You mentioned there's a script. Is I guess you hadn't fulfilled the necessary time here. That, I mean, just to boil that down, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I just watched this woman. She's called the Alchemist, and she has a site, and she's got black hair and these dark eyes. She's just like wild. And she talks about things that are really hard to keep together. But she talked about NDEs in a recent video, and she said there are two things going on with NDEs. And if you look at all of the ones you guys interview, she's right. They fall into two categories. One is a wake-up call. Like, all right, snap out of it. You're really screwing up. And, and you'll hear people talking about this, that I was addicted to this and I was violent. And then they have an NDE because they overdose or they get, stabbed in a bar or something. And now they're this changed person. And that's the wake-up call group. And then there's another group that came to do something, that came with some kind of thing that they could do if they chose to, but it was really, your higher self had taken this on. And it's just, that NDE is a reminder, like I said, an invitation to wake up to who you really are. And if you ask me who was the tall, wispy guy in that facility, I'll tell you it was me. It was a higher version of me, and I was a little copy of him. We have thousands of them, and we call them individual lives. Tom Campbell calls them individuated units of, he calls them free will awareness units, something like that. So yeah, we come into the movie and we have this free will, and then we go back, and that all the information of that life, of this life, of all of our lives is recorded. It's a file. It's loaded into a thing, and you can revisit it anytime, relive it anytime on the other side. And so yeah, that guy, I believe, just when he was chuckling, I was feeling it. I was resonating. And I was like, that's interesting that his laughing is occurring inside me. So I think we all are, but I'm a little sliver of him, and he has thousands of us, and it's all part of this Earth School curriculum. And because there wasn't any reason for me to be there. I tell everyone that my whole thing was a show and tell. I was in that spacious heavenly realm, and then I was in this in-between place, and then I was in this really dark, low vibrational place, and then I was back in a human form. And I just think it was one of those things, hey, pay attention, you did come for a reason. You're busy having fun, surfing and everything, but you came for a reason, and you're going to have to remember that soon. And, it's absolutely happening now. It is a time to remember, all of us.
Yeah, I
Did
think people like you are sort of acting as these guides right now as humanity kind of goes through this, collective awakening, and you guys are the teachers, the firsthand experiencers. But on that note, and I wanted to get your opinion here, like, have you noticed, some of these topics are like kind of taboo, or like, they're a lot of people, steer away from them because they don't want to be labeled or whatever. But I feel like there's this growing interest in, these spiritual topics like near-death experiences and whatnot, like almost happening at a really accelerated rate. Like seeing some of these more spiritual YouTube channels just like exploding like overnight now. Like there's something, people are becoming way more interested in this, in my opinion, but wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, the vibration of the planet is going up. And so that's having a wake-up effect on people. And the people that contact me now, I'll Zoom them, or if I give a talk, let's say there's 50 people, 10 of them will come up and they'll be very emotional. They'll say, I've got this vibration and I don't know what's going on, and you just talked about it. And it's like, yeah, you're cool. Just, support it. And so, yeah, the vibration, we're not going backwards. No way. The vibration is going to continue to go up. More and more people are going to wake up. You guys have a really good format, and you seem very genuine, and you're talking from your hearts. And this is what the world needs. It doesn't need slick salespeople or whatever. They just need people speaking from their hearts, and the world will be drawn to listen. So yeah, this is going on. I'm trying to remember what your question, if I got anywhere near it.
No, yeah, you answered. Yeah, it was just more around, have you noticed like this, accelerated interest in these topics? And yeah.
The first time I noticed something was going on, I was going to this place down in Costa Rica, and I could get a bed there in a casita or something, and it was a lot of meditation and really cool stuff. And it's a village, off the grid village in the jungle. And right after 2012, right after December 2012, in 2013, you couldn't get in there. You had to camp and they were building more and more little, shacks like crazy, because the kids were coming up. You'd walk up this dirt road down from the beach, and the kids were coming up from all over the world with their backpacks saying, I'm supposed to be here. I don't know why. And that was 2013. And I was like, something's up. And then it just exploded with COVID. It just, what a shaman will tell you to get in nature and to sit still and to be silent. And COVID, the whole world was put into stillness and silence. Stop flying around, stop snowboarding in Colorado, sit still. And so yeah, that's what's going on. And it's interesting to watch. I know I sound like a lunatic, but in another year, it's going to be, wait a minute, now we're in silence, and now people, soon AI is going to turn us off to everything media-wise, because no one's going to know what's real. And I think you can see that happening. And people are going to be forced to go inward. And once you go inward, everything sorts out. Turn off the mainstream feed and turn off the fear and go inward. And then you come to this realization that you are this eternal, infinite being. And you're just having this experience here on Earth, and it's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost seems like COVID was like a catalyst for furthering that, collective awakening. But trust me, you do not sound crazy here. I mean, this is stuff that we kind of started with NDEs, but like that whole journey of research, like just takes you into all of these wild things that they all kind of resonate, and it all starts kind of making sense. Start connecting the dots and stuff. And
it's an interrelated path for sure.
You're speaking right in line with a lot of the dots we're connecting on our own research. But I wanted to ask you something back on the indie experience, and like kind of coming back to reality, and like just, it's a very personal question, but like how has it changed you back in the physical realm? Like knowing definitively, what happens when you die. Like, so many of us, we rely on like faith or, other stories we've heard from other people, or, reading like scripture or whatever to kind of formulate, our own opinion of what may be happening, what lies beyond. But we're operating on faith. But like, you've experienced it firsthand. So like, how has that changed you, back in the physical realm, back in your human body? Like just knowing now that you know what comes after death, that you're infinite.
Yeah, I lost my parents in the last 15 years. My dad died a while ago. My mom died about 4 or 5 years ago. And yeah, I was really a good son. I loved him. I did everything for him. And um, when it was, when their life was over, we all got a expiration date. Uh, all I did was help them home. And it wasn't a big, for me, it wasn't a big loss. It was be there for them, uh, comfort them. This is the hardest part. And then they'll be home and they'll be free and they'll be laughing all the time and joyous. And um, so that's the whole thing with death. My friends are, some of the guys I worked with and stuff are passing on, and um, just be there for them. I guess that's one thing. And with me, it's not important at all to string together a bunch of days or years or decades anymore. What's important to me is that I don't miss the boat on, where I can be. What's the potential for me to assist? What's the potential for me to help with what's going on? And that's what my only thought is day in and day out is, how can I be of assistance? And, don't let me miss the opportunities to help others with this incredibly huge, subject, incredibly huge. So that's why I talk so much.
Yeah. And that gives us a good insight to how you're operating now after this experience and how it's affected and impacted how you deal with your relationships, knowing again that death maybe isn't what we may have considered it to be. And I think for our audience, Bill, I'd love to hear after everything you've seen, beyond the body, beyond this world, what's the most important truth or insight we should all take with us? Not just something you've taken with you and operating in your, remainder of your life here, but if there's one thing our listeners should reflect on about their own lives here, what would it be?
That love is all there is. I know that's very cliche, but it's absolutely true. Um, the Earth is a dimension. It's an Earth plane. We call it a planet, but it's a realm. It's an energetic realm where we have adventures, and it's off in the corner of the cosmos. And we're kind of sequestered here. We're kind of quarantined because these emotions that run wild are so powerful. They're so destructive. And, we see that. Just watch the news or look at history. And once we leave here, once we graduate this Earth school by our own vibration, then all there is love. It's just fun, and it's just light, and it's unity, and anything else is not fathomable. And I was on this talk with this medium. I was on her thing, and I mentioned that my wife and I, we went to Disneyland, and we went into the Haunted Mansion. And, you go through that, if you notice, nothing's really seriously scary in that Disneyland Haunted Mansion. It's all kind of fun. It's not really scaring you. And when you go into the dining room and all those ghosts are chasing each other around, and there's all these things going on, and there's a dining room scene, and there's people dancing, and things are flying out past you, and they're up in the sky. And when I sit quietly, that's what I see. I see this other side. I perceive it bleeding in of all this non-physical beings having a blast, just shooting everywhere. And I mentioned that to her. I said, my wife and I went in there, and then when we got outside, I said, that's what I saw, and that's what I see when I sit still. And she said, none of them were unhappy, and they're all having fun, and they're all chasing each other around, and it's all humorous. And that is the afterlife. There are no Freddy Kruegers. Well, maybe there are, but you don't need to deal with them. You just raise your frequency and you just go past them. I see these things, but you don't engage them and you don't react with fear. Once this is the hardest thing, is getting our thoughts that there's nothing ever to fear. Don't engage with them, and don't vibrate at that frequency, and then it's like passing through a bunch of gnats or something. They don't mean anything. You just go past you and you go on your way. But I don't know. Did I answer that?
Yeah, that's powerful, Bill, and thanks for sharing that. And I think overall here, thanks for taking us somewhere, few people ever come back from. And for anyone listening, that message there, if this conversation has resonated with you, make sure to subscribe here. We're going to be sharing. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we want to continue to share these types of stories. But James, I wanted to give you a chance too to ask sort of any final questions here. Bill, we've taken you on a roundabout journey. I know you could take this in a million different directions, and we'd love to chat for hours with you. I think we should have you back. But James, I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask any sort of final.
Yeah, I don't have any further questions for this interview, but I think, if you're willing, Bill, I'd love to have you back and kind of do a deeper dive into some of the more esoteric stuff we were talking about, with maybe some of these, ancient advanced civilizations and, maybe like the Yuga cycles, things along that line, that we also, are researching ourselves and finding really interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, Bill, this was great to get you on here for the NDE, but I think would love to take this further, get into the more spiritual awakening, talk about really the current reality and where things are moving. And I think that would be a great follow-up if you're open to it. But this was an amazing journey you took us on here. I have a million more questions, but I want to be respectful of your time. And again, goosebumps throughout. This is a amazing story. Incredible.
Okay. Can I just close with one thing? Okay. So the NDE, I think I called that, what did I call that? Mysticism 101 or something like that. But that is kind of the first step. And coming out of that, we'll come into some understanding. A lot of people are talking about it, is that in all of us, we have a pineal gland. And that is the seat of the soul, the third eye. And when that starts waking up, it happens in your waking life. You start realizing it. But mostly when we go to bed at night, we go into REM sleep, and the pineal gland drops a little DMT on the brain, and you soul travel. Everyone does that. We talked about when you come back, you feel a dropping sensation. And that is a doorway. This DMT that we make in our bodies, it's a doorway to these other dimensions, this other incredibly profound conversation that's just infinite. And what the shamans have found, and what a lot of these online guys are doing, is they're talking about this DMT and trying to map out this other side and stuff. And I don't recommend that, but it does work. You may not be ready for a room that you're going to go into uninvited. That's kind of what's happening when you take DMT. But there is another way the whole thing is about putting the physical world personality, the physical body, putting it to sleep temporarily and sitting quietly in nature, in stillness, raising your vibration with energized water and vibrant food from the sun. Maybe sun gazing first thing in the morning safely. That has energetic light codes that switch something on in our DNA. That's absolutely what happened to me about 5 or 6 years ago. And you start these vibrations, and that will, as soon as that starts, now you're kind of in sync with this whole ascension thing. And that is what's lacking for most of us, is that sunlight thing. But the closer you get to nature, the natural world, the closer you are to opening the supernatural world. That's where the supernatural, the non-physical, that's where it is. It's thriving in nature, in the natural world. And so if you sit quietly in nature, zone out, meditate, whatever you want to call it, let go, you can start controlling that consciousness level, that DMT release, and you'll start having experiences that will prove to you all these crazy things that people like me say, prove to you that we're all the same and we're all on the same path. And we're all going to understand that in the next couple of years. It's going to be available to everyone. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, it's been a treat talking to you here. And yeah, I love this conversation. James, I hope you enjoyed that too. That was
Yeah, Bill,
yeah.
appreciate it so much. And yeah, we'll chat about getting you back here too, if you're interested, because we
Yeah,
we
totally.
could talk
You guys
for
are cool.
hours.